Welcome to the If I Had More Time podcast hosted by Mariners Church. This series invites you into a casual conversation with our senior pastor, Eric Geiger, and our teaching team to hear a few insights and truths they wish they had time to include in the weekend message. We hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much for joining us for the If I Had More Time podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm Liz Garcia, and today I'm just so happy. Kay Kiger is here. Oh my gosh.
She makes everybody happier.
I'm so happy too.
And she brings a lot more color to the studio too.
What's going on? What are you saying?
Yeah, I know. I put on this pink shirt today going, Kay will be here.
I do like it.
Thank you so much.
I do.
Thank you. We are really glad that you're here.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. It feels like it's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
You're a favorite on here. So
I love to come.
Well, this week we are in week 5 of James. I can hardly believe that we are already so far into this book. It's been so amazing. Eric, how's it feel? Like we're almost at the end.
We actually, Kay and I were talking about that earlier today. I was like, I can't believe it's week 5. I've loved the book of James. I'm kind of sad when I get to halfway through a book. We still have weeks 6, 7, and 8, so we still have 3
It's not
more.
over.
But it's a beautiful book. But we did hit all of chapter 3, so now all we have is chapter 4 and 5.
Oh my gosh, it's gone so quickly.
But the whole fall's going by quickly. That's the kind of conversation we were having.
Yep, every fall seems, especially with teenagers, it feels as if the fall season is so fast.
So amazing. Full of so many exciting events, great things.
Just one big thing after another.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Well, it really was. I mean, an amazing message. I'm so excited to hear all the stories that will come from this weekend. We had I Believe.
Yes.
A great passage for an I Believe. It's so unsuspecting, you know? Like, I had not heard this one used, but for something like an invitation to put your faith in Jesus, and it's beautiful, though. It really is. I'm so curious if you guys have had the cow tongue tacos, though.
Have you?
I have not had cow, but several of our pastors at Mariners Santa Ana, they were like, man, you got to get some cow. They love it. They love cow tongue tacos and cow tongue. I can't remember the word they used for it.
I'm the wrong girl to ask.
It's a Spanish word, but they are.
Wait, we've got somebody on the set here who knows it.
That's it, lingua. Lauren, who just got married, she knows lingua.
Yeah,
I would eat some lingua tacos.
Yeah.
Kay would eat.
I would.
Any taco. Kay would eat any taco.
I think we might need to tell the people that you did want to have a real cow tongue on stage with you.
Oh, why
and
didn't you
it
do
was
it?
vetoed.
Right. I had multiple people who said that they thought it'd be hard to pull people back. So they said not. But I said, guys, I did it in Miami. So then I just told the story from Miami.
Okay, that was good. That was good. They're also kind of expensive.
They are really large cow tongues.
They are
huge.
They are. Yeah,
huge.
Yeah, which is why you can feed our whole Mariners Santa Ana staff with a cow tongue. One cow tongue. Lingua.
Lingua. I was like, man, you guys have already learned so much on this podcast.
Yes, that's
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a new Spanish word.
Yes.
It's awesome. Well, amazing. And I can't think of a passage that would be more important for every season of life. You know, like there isn't a person that came into church this weekend that this didn't really resonate with. It means a lot to us both as people who do speak and then also people who have been recipient of many, many words and many that have built us up and harmed us deeply. So I'd love for you two to get to share a little bit of some of the things that you've put in place in your life to ensure that your tongue is used to build up and to bring life. You guys talked about a couple of buckets that both yourself, your marriage, your kids. Why don't you guys walk us through those?
Yeah, on the bucket of ourselves or thinking about how we talk to ourselves, this has been a passage that over the last 2 or 3 years we've talked about a good bit.
Yep.
There's a proverb that you came across in your own personal study that impacted you about how your words tell your heart how to feel.
Yeah.
Do you remember the proverb?
I don't. I wish you'd asked me to look that up beforehand.
Sorry.
You know what it was in? It was the year we were doing the Tim Keller yearly devotional.
The Proverbs.
And that's where I saw it. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but there's a proverb that essentially says the exact same thing James does, that your words tell your entire body how to feel.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so when we talked about that, and we've talked about with our kids so many times too, that, you know, if you're going to tell yourself that you're not good enough, not smart, you know, whatever, you're not enough of whatever, you are going to believe it.
Yeah.
Just like, and we all know this is true. If you if you are upset with someone and you keep telling everyone how upset you are with that person, you are going to become more upset with that person.
Right.
So, I mean, it's such like a proverb.
Yeah.
And then James teaches the exact same thing.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
And some have said that James is the New Testament version of Proverbs, that James is essentially a wisdom writer in the New Testament. And he is saying something that you see clearly in that proverb, that your tongue directs your whole life. And so how you speak about you, how you speak to you, really, it impacts your entire outlook. It impacts your joy, your peace.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all seen, it's easier to see in other people than in ourselves, sadly. But you have seen a friend who you're like, wow, that person on social media just like threw a grenade. And then 2 weeks later, another, or 3 or 4, and they're not seeing in themselves that they are going down this just anger trail, saying more and more and more. But what's happening is they are, the more they speak anger, the more angry they become.
Wow.
And there's research that has said that in recent years. People have thought, okay, I'm filled with anger. I will feel better if I express my anger.
Yeah.
But actually, research has in recent years has shown that expressing anger actually makes you more angry.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, people think, I'm just so bent up, I gotta express it, and then I'll feel better once I express it. You have this momentary release once you express, but that all those words that you spoke settle into your mind, settle into your heart, turn you into a more angry or more bitter person.
Yeah.
So Kay and I, we'll even sometimes at night when we're just us talking, we'll say, I want to share this with you, but I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to.
Yeah. I was just going to say that.
That's like a common thing with us.
It's a common thing. It's become more common over the past few years. You're so right that one of us will say to the other, okay, let's just say I'm ticked off about something. And so I'm like telling Eric, and then he'll be like, okay, but okay, that's good. That's good. You told me now. But now you gotta stop talking about it.
Yeah,
because if you keep talking about it, you're not accomplishing any great purpose except making yourself more ticked off.
Yeah.
Talking myself into more of a frenzy.
So we will say that to each other, like, okay, now you gotta quit talking about it.
This is such an important part of our own discipline. When I'm thinking about how you two hold one another accountable, I think about for myself, I had really horrible self-talk when I was younger and I was in college, and I will never forget a time that sometimes around your like close people, how you talk to yourself will come out.
Sure.
And I'll never forget one of my closest friends, Allie, like I was, late at night, she walked into my room and was like, I've been hearing how you've been talking about yourself and I'm not okay with it.
That's good.
It hurts me as your friend, and how you're talking about yourself, I know is impacting you way more than you know. So I want to acknowledge for a second the role that we have with one another in all of this, not just for your self-talk, but for whenever I'm venting, for whenever I get heated about something and I want to share it, we can help one another with this.
And I think this is super important in every relationship, but you're right. I mean, Eric and I tend to be really playful with each other. And we know that, like we know that we can pick at each other and all that, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But because we do that in a healthy way, we can also say to the other person, hey, you got to quit saying that. Like, you got to quit telling yourself that. It's not true. Right. Like, there will be times that I'll be saying something about myself and he'll say, Kate, you got to stop. It's not, because it's not even true.
Yeah.
And then you're going to believe something that's not even true.
Yeah.
But you don't want to overswing and then not listen to your spouse. So, like, if Kay has something she wants to talk about, I shouldn't 3 sentences in say, "No, baby, don't be saying that." Try to use James as a way.
That would be really effective, I'm sure.
So
there'd be a lot less words. That'd be for sure.
It's really a spiritual art of listening to each other, but then at some point I'll talk about me. If I'm sharing a concern or a problem, at some point I'm just getting really redundant. I'm saying the same thing over and over again, and it's not super helpful for Kay to be able to help me process or to be able to pray for me, because at this point now I'm just venting. There's a place where I'm sharing, and it's so that she can be praying for me, so she can offer insight. I think that's healthy. But then at some point it keeps going and going and going, where I'm just saying the same thing over and over again. I'm becoming more and more frustrated, and that's when it's good when Kay will say, "Hey, I think you can stop talking about it now." I think
we've got it.
Exactly what I said.
I think you've heard yourself enough.
I just don't think it's even loving if you don't do that. Like, but you do have to have you can't just do it to anyone. I mean, you have to have the relationship first. You know that, and so like your friend Allie obviously had a, you know, she knew she loved you.
Yeah.
And she could say that kind of thing to you. I don't think we could do it for each other if we didn't have the other side of our relationship.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we do this with our kids too. I mean, going to that bucket, you know, there's things, I think we said from the very beginning, we're never going to say shut up. That was like one thing we said we're never going to say.
And then they can't say shut up either.
Yeah. And I mean, that seems like so small, but it's like, it's so hurtful.
Disrespectful.
Yeah, it's so disrespectful and hurtful. I kind of had that rule as a teacher too. Like I will never say that to a kid. You know, I'd rather walk away than say that. There's just certain things. Maybe it's because I was hurt by them. I don't know. I don't really remember. But
how our kids talk to each other, and how we talk to our kids, and how they talk to us. That's a conversation for us.
Well, I think what you have to realize as a parent is how you talk to your child is how they're going to speak to other people.
Yes.
I mean, it's just a fact. Yeah. If you want them to speak kindly to other people and to rejoice when they rejoice and not, you know, be jealous and envious and all those things, then I mean, how you respond to them is going to affect with how they respond to other people.
How have you guys put those rules in place? I mean, how do they know? Is this rules that you've taught them, or is it models, both?
I can think of a couple of things.
Yeah, I think modeling first.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
And then the older they got, I mean, now they're 17, almost 15. But when they were small, it was mainly modeling, and then there were rules put in place. And then when we've disciplined them,
the whiny
you know,
spray.
Say again?
The whiny spray. Remember the spray?
Oh gosh, this is amazing. I forgot.
I'll tell this one.
Did you call it the whiny spray? I thought it was the whiny juice.
But I used it for a lot. I was like, this is going to work. I'm going to use it for all kinds of things. I don't know where I got this idea. It probably was somebody else's idea.
And if you have someone in your life right now who is easily offended, do not forward them this.
Yeah, or maybe just stop listening altogether.
Because
I don't know.
Kay,
whatever, it worked.
It worked, and Kay has genius parenting things.
So okay, listen.
But not everyone will appreciate them. I think it was genius.
I think it worked.
I think it's amazing.
Okay,
I'm so glad you did.
Your girls are very sweet.
Okay, so here's the deal. It really mattered to me how our kids spoke to each other because
Yes.
I knew it was going to affect how they spoke to other people. And so when they were like preschool age, you know, it's just when they start with the whole whining thing and then just being sassy, you know, whatever. So I, you know, had done a lot of reading about apple cider vinegar, and it's like super good for you. So I got one of those spray bottles. I wrote whiny spray or something like that on it. I filled it with apple cider vinegar. I told them beforehand what was going to happen. You know, if you're talking unkindly to each other, if you're whining about something we've asked you, anything, basically whining. Do everything first time, every time with a happy heart. There's really working on obedience too, but it's words. And so then if they would, you know, whine or whatever, I would just like say, okay. And I wouldn't make a big deal of it. I just would walk over and say, open up. And if they didn't open up, they would get an extra spray. So if I said open up, and
they knew
we
the
had
rules.
one child who would open up immediately, and we had one child who wouldn't. Yeah. So I would be like, well, I mean, now it's 2 sprays. Now it's 3 sprays. Now it's 4 sprays. You know, I just keep going until. And so that actually was super effective.
Now this
is hilarious.
Just remind us the age they are.
They were like maybe 2 and 4,
Right.
3, and they were little.
Yeah, this is not
Wait,
teenagers. We're
No,
not.
this is
But
so
it
much
might
kinder.
work for
It used to
teenagers, now that you
be
mention it.
washing your mouth out with soap.
Right,
That
that's
used
what
to
it
be
was.
the play.
Except for
So
apple
this
cider
is-
vinegar is good for
Exactly.
you.
This is perfectly
I was like
safe.
boosting their immune system, and they both really like vinegar now. So, but you know, the whole deal with that was, you know, I grew up with a lot of siblings, right? And so my parents were really tough on the way we spoke to each other. I'm so glad they were.
Yeah.
Because it does become how you talk to other people. And like I think it affects like how I talk to Eric. I think it affects like I think that if you get in the habit of thinking certain ways are okay to talk to people, then you become hard to thinking that they're not. So we just had certain things we never allowed the girls to say to each other or to anybody, actually.
And even get more even same level of practicality, but about not only them talking to each other, but so if Kay and I had a struggle with a teacher that they had,
Yes, this is a
we
good
would
point.
never speak of that teacher negatively in front of our child.
Yeah.
And Kay as a teacher has just seen that so many times
Yeah.
when a parent will do that. And then you expect that child to go and respect,
Listen to the teacher. It's not gonna
respect or
happen.
listen to that teacher. So Kay, I don't think we've perfectly lived this way, but our intent was that we would never gossip in front of our kids. We would never complain in
About
front
a
of our
teacher or
kids about a
coach.
teacher
I
or
mean,
coach.
yeah.
That they would not that we would not feed into negativity in their minds and corrupt their thinking about something.
We definitely haven't done it perfectly. I'll just go ahead and say that. But we've definitely messed up. But I mean, I think the intention of your heart, which you say in your sermon, is like, okay, that's our goal, right? Okay, so now we messed up. We said something we shouldn't have said in front of them.
And we apologize.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's times I've apologized to my kids on how I, not that how I spoke to them, because I haven't done that, but how I spoke about something or that I was frustrated,
Yeah. That's
I think
huge.
we've apologized for how we've spoken to them too, actually. Like we've apologized to our kids when we've like raised our voice or lost it on them. Maybe that's more me than you. Actually, that's probably actually more me than Aaron. But I mean, I think John Townsend.
I don't think you've lost it on them. I don't want to give the impression that you're running around the house like.
I don't think anybody has that impression.
I mean,
I
think there's been times that when they have disobeyed, that you've shown frustration and then perhaps felt that you overexpressed the frustration. But it's not like you're.
Perhaps. For sure I have.
Okay, baby.
John Townsend. I know you're trying to help me. John Townsend said that that he told me one time that more than acting perfectly in front of your kids, that apologizing to your kids has a far greater effect long term. So I just feel like I've given myself chances to make a long term effect.
I'm gonna. Although that is not an encouragement.
I'm not saying you should do that.
Go mess up so you can apologize. That's not what we're saying.
But you know what, Eric and I have words between the two of us that we don't say.
Great. Yeah. Let's talk about that. What about in marriage?
I don't remember where we heard this. Obviously, we got married really young, so any wisdom we had was not because of our age.
No, it wasn't from us. That's for sure.
It was because we did both fear God and know God, and so I believe someone told us, hey, the word divorce, don't ever use that word. And the person wasn't saying, obviously, that word is in the vocabulary, and you're speaking of how divorce impacts people, and you're not trying to imagine that there's not a divorce. But don't use it in your own relationship, because sometimes young married couples, and we had friends who would perhaps say things such as, maybe we should just get a divorce, or have you ever thought about us getting a divorce in moments of anger or frustration? And we're married 28 years now, just celebrating right now. We have never used that word in our marriage in 28 years.
Is this podcast going to come out on our anniversary?
This podcast releases on our anniversary, baby.
Oh, happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary, sweet.
28 years?
28.
That's amazing. Yeah. Congratulations.
I spent the first lots of years of our marriage not wanting anyone to know how old we are. Now I tell everyone how old we are. Like really young guys.
You didn't want people to realize how young we were when we got married?
Yeah. But now I'm like, I would do it all over again, so why not they know?
We grew up together.
Beautiful.
We did.
That's beautiful.
But is that true in your mind that we've never used that word?
We've never used that word. I do think I do. Okay, so let's go back to that. There are some things, and I never heard my parents say that either, actually. Like, I think there's something about that. Like, I never heard my parents say that. They weren't perfect, but I never worried my parents were going to get a divorce. I think that's where we heard it.
From our parents?
No, I think that someone said, like, if you start saying that, it's going to become a habit, and then your kids are going to hear it, and then your kids are going to be fearful, and then like it's just you're setting yourself up for success, and you're telling yourself that it's okay. Like the more you say it, the more you become desensitized to this being a word that it's never going to happen. So I think that's just one thing we've never said. I had a big fear when Eric and I first got married, and he's right. We were both walking with Jesus. I mean, I think I've thought about this a lot recently with our anniversary coming up, but I do believe that. I believe we were both walking with Jesus. Like he gave us his desires became our desires. Get married young all over again. Okay, with that said, we had a lot of growing up to do. I was really fearful of Eric yelling at me. I don't know why. Yes, I do know why. My dad could be a yeller at times. And so I don't know if you remember this, but I would like fuss at you for yelling at me before you ever did it. I was like, no, you're never yelling at me. And Eric said, well, I didn't actually yell at you because he doesn't really yell. And but I was just so fearful of it happening. So, I mean, there is an impact that words have had. For some of us, words have had an impact on us negatively in the past. And then you have a response to it that you don't even probably know that you have. Yeah. So I had to kind of retrain, and I had an amazing father, but I mean, he could be, my whole family is super loud though. But anyway, it was like one of those things. I don't remember any other words that we've said we would never say in our marriage. And we always don't curse at each other. I mean, be bad. But
no, we just have
any
been
other word, like specific words
that we've said no. No, I think that we just wanted to make it clear that we were in a covenant and we were not walking away from that covenant.
Yeah.
And the words that we use in our home, we realized early shapes our marriage, and then it took us a while to have kids, so we had kids later. And we have been, not that we've lived it perfectly, but we have been really cognizant of how we speak to each other.
Yeah.
And of how we allow the kids to speak to each other.
and us.
And to us. Yeah.
Also, just a side note, I don't want you. It kind of starting to sound like our house is like no fun at all. Our house is really fun.
It's impossible for something not to be fun. And when you're there, of course it's fun. What are you talking about?
I just want to say this though. I think it's great to have a culture in your house of like where you can be playful and have fun
Yes.
and say things that are like you have to be able to take. Everybody has to be able to take a joke, right? Like,
Yeah.
We
Don't take ourselves too seriously,
Yeah,
too.
you want your kids to be able to take a joke and be picked on and all those things. So I think if you allow that, it's easier to set boundaries with things you're not going to say.
Yes.
Because everything's not off limits. As a matter of fact, most things aren't off limits. Like you can have let's have a lot of fun with each other,
Totally.
but we're not going to be unkind or disrespectful.
Right.
You know.
The answers to most things is yes, and therefore the no's are really important no's.
Yeah.
Big
but
no's.
we don't. Yeah, we would want to have way more yeses.
Yeah.
To our kids than no's.
Yeah.
Choose our battles. Have a few no's that are important.
Yeah.
And a lot of yeses.
Yeah. This is all so helpful and super practical. So thank you guys.
Yeah.
Is there, I'd love for us to just take time and encourage people who are hearing the message this weekend. You spent some time, a lot of time talking about the destruction that can come from our words. And for some people listening to this message, it's piercing and devastating because it's a reminder of perhaps what's already happened.
Right.
There's already been the devastation. The damage has been done, whether it's by them or by somebody else in their life. How can we encourage people that are already on the other side of maybe some mistakes?
So to the person who's feeling the fallout of words, they hear this message and they have this, that was me. With my words being careless or my words being intentionally harmful, I damaged relationships, damaged myself. If you are at the place where you recognize it, you're actually in a really, really good place.
Exactly.
Because there's the more common story is someone being very damaging with their words and not recognizing it. And you recognizing it is actually God's grace in your life, giving you a desire to repent, a desire to go a new direction, a desire for him to cleanse your heart. And so you having this sense of, I've messed up here. That's really God's grace. It's really him working on you. It's him pursuing you. It's him not giving up on you. The alternative would be you not having that sense right now and continuing to be really careless and unwise with your words and bring more damage to people. So where you are right now is it's way better. It's way better. So ask God for forgiveness, receive his grace, and then seek forgiveness from people that you've harmed.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too.
But then you move on.
Yeah.
You don't have to earn God's forgiveness. He's offering it. You receive it. Sometimes it's harder because God chooses to forget. We have a hard time forgetting.
That's right.
We really do.
Yeah.
So the person that you harmed, God is just so gracious. He's able to completely cast away our sin as far as the east is from the west. But people we hurt, sometimes the damage is so deep that it's hard for them. They aren't God, just like we aren't. And they have a hard time moving forth, but you do your best. You go and you ask forgiveness. You try to make peace, and after you've done that with a clear conscience, that's all you can do. And you can't live under the burden of trying to earn back something that you damaged.
Yeah.
You change. You live a different way. Any kind of reconciliation that's on you that you can do in terms of forgiveness or making things right, of course.
Yeah.
But you don't then put yourself under a burden of trying to earn God's grace or forgiveness. You just receive God's grace and forgiveness and then go a new path.
I think it works the other way too. Like if you're the person who's been hurt, by words. I think about that in that passage where it talks about the fire, and like a fire gets out of control fast, like really fast. And what it destroys, it takes a long time to rebuild. And even sometimes what is rebuilt comes back. It's very different in the rebuilding. So I think there's a part of us that has to realize that sometimes there's damage. We can ask the Lord to restore. We can repent. We can ask for forgiveness. All those things. But sometimes it's just gonna be different.
Yeah, what's rebuilt after the fire looks different than what the structure that was there before the fire.
Yeah. One thing going back to the kid thing, but I think this applies to like our relationship, every relationship. And I guess I learned this maybe from my mom. I don't know. But when you have a bunch of kids in the house, you learn to naturally be good communicators. It's like a survival skill. Like you have to communicate well to be able to survive. So she would tell us, and this is what we tell our kids, but it would apply to everybody. Let's just say you've been hurt. Man, I'm so sorry if words have hurt you. I mean, words have hurt me too. I mean, it stinks. But one principle that I think is good to live by is if someone hurts you, you really have two choices right then. You've heard me say this a million times to our kids. So if someone hurts you, you can do one of two things. You can say to the person, hey, Liz, that hurt. I was really hurt by those words. And give Liz a chance to make it right, to reconcile. Yeah. That's option one. Option two is you can say, you know what? I know Liz loves me. She did not mean anything by that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to choose to move on. Yeah. And forgive and move on. Yeah. The third option, which is not an option, is to hide it in your heart and become bitter. Yeah. So, if I would encourage someone.
When someone does that, and not that this is Liz, but you started using Liz as an example.
I'm just looking at her. Yeah.
But
I can take it.
She's just so cute.
For someone who holds the bitterness in their heart, they think they're hurting Liz. But Liz isn't being hurt at all.
She might not even know.
She might even know. You're the one who's hurting.
Yeah.
You're the one who's being eaten up inside by the bitterness.
This is a hard skill for some people. It's easy for some. It's hard for some. But to say I'm going to give the other person a chance to repent and reconcile to who hurt me. Yeah. Is the right thing to do. Yeah. So because they may not even know, like Eric said, they may not even know. Yeah. But the thing you cannot do is to stock it away and say, words hurt me, words hurt me. You will turn yourself into a victim that is only hurting yourself.
Right. So true.
And relationships never last with that.
Yeah. I love how you phrase that.
And then you're corroded on the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how you phrase that, giving them a chance, because I'm already making assumptions about them. When I'm angry at them for what they said to me, they don't care about me. They disrespect me. I'm not really important to them. They're just mean, whatever it is. Why don't you let them tell you that? Why don't you go to them and tell them that it hurt you and tell them how you felt, that maybe you felt disrespected? Mm-hmm. Yes. They probably are going to say, oh my gosh, I did not mean to make you feel that way.
More times than not, that's exactly what happens. Yeah,
that's really.
And our girls have found that. Let me say this real quick. So you know how we were talking about like the words, like saying how you feel? Yeah. So let's just say someone hurts Evie's feelings. So if we live by the principle that I'm saying, and what we don't do is keep talking about it over and over and over and over and over and over again at home, because then she's just getting more and more and more and more upset. Yeah. So she tells me, so-and-so hurt my feelings. And I say, okay, so you got two choices. Yeah. Which one are you going to do? And so you need to do one of them, but you need to do one of them like in the next 24 hours. I mean, like you don't have forever. Yeah. You can't bring this up like 6 months later. I mean, I guess you can, but that's, I think, kind of unfair too.
Yeah. Anyway. I'm glad you brought up, so we're talking about the words that we say to others, but dealing with the words that people have said to us, and I think this takes wisdom on how to handle it. You have the truth that out of overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. Yes. So someone who has spoken painfully destructive words to you, Jesus saying out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. That's true for you, but it's also true for the person, which means there's something going on in them.
Which may or may not have anything to do with you.
Yes, there's something. It's a cliche, but it is true that hurt people hurt people. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So someone who's carrying bitterness and anger and frustration, it does come out, and sometimes it just came out towards you. Yeah. So I'm not excusing that, but it does cause you to realize that. I mean, I've had some hurtful things said to me when you're a leader, that both in the business world, in the marketplace, and then in church ministry, sadly. I say because you would think that everyone in church is just never going to say anything mean, but that's not true. Yeah. But sometimes God's gotten me through it by reminding me that person is going through something very challenging and difficult, their heart, that person's heart is overwhelmed with pain, with bitterness, and you just happen to be the recipient of all that person's going through. So that can cause me to be more gracious in my response to the person. So you want to have that response. And then also at the same time, though, if someone continually talks to you that way, or not only in a way that they're critical of you, but if you find yourself around people who are always speaking negatively of others,
that's right.
They are slanderers or gossipers,
Yes.
or there's someone at the office who, I mean, they always are finding something negative. I'm not saying to completely discard those people from your life, but I am saying you need to lower the intake of all of those comments and increase the intake of truth and grace spoken into your life.
Yeah.
You're not hearing me say, just cut everybody out of your life. I don't believe that's true. But it is wise to evaluate the influences into your mind, into your heart.
Yeah, it's that sponge illustration that you showed us.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
It's amazing. It really is so true. I'm flooded right now in my mind with so many different examples of how I've experienced that. It's the scripture at first is a little discouraging whenever he's saying that we can't tame the tongue. I'm like, well, crap, because I really need to tame this thing, But he does give us self-control. He does allow us to.
And he changes
put
our hearts.
Yeah.
You know this. Again, we're better at seeing it in other people than we are in ourselves. Angry people tend to be together. Negative people tend to be together. Bitter people tend to be together. And so
happy people tend to be together.
Yeah. If you find yourself surrounded with people who are always speaking that kind of way, you really want to evaluate, am I that way? Because it's highly unlikely that you were surrounded by that and not influenced.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's people. It's also what you listen to, the podcasts that you're choosing to listen to, the music, the TV. Yes. My life group actually just went around and we shared about some of the things that we've been intaking. And one girl vulnerably, really powerfully was like, she loves comedy. And a lot of comedy we know isn't always the best for us to hear, And she talked about how she noticed a significant change in how she spoke after like this being a regular rhythm where she would watch it, and she took it out of her life. I was so proud of her. There are little practical things that we can do like that to eliminate.
Yes.
I just heard someone that I really respect say that they were convicted about a certain music artist and someone they had listened to for years and years and years and had to really dig into it and was like, no, he's for sure convicting me about this.
Yeah.
And so she gave it up. Wow. And so the girls and I were discussing this about different things that that you may be convicted about. And I just was reminded, and this is a reminder here, the consequence of being convicted and not listening is a hardened heart. That's the consequence.
Yeah, when you're convicted, you want to obey.
You want to obey.
Yep.
So, if the conviction for me, there's certain things that it should be a conviction for all of us, but God may be convicting me about something because he knows how he's going to use me a few months down the road, And if I don't listen now and my heart becomes hardened, then I'm going to miss that opportunity.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, I don't know. I think,
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for these really practical tools. I'm
glad to do it.
So grateful. And
let's go home and talk nice to each other.
Yeah.
Let's do the silent thing together, baby. Let's do the.
That's right.
Let's do a silent-ish date. Let's do a silent-ish date.
Oh my gosh. I would never.
There's no
that.
way
that sounds
that's going to
miserable.
happen. Yeah.
I would never. I would never do a silent-ish thing with Eric, but we could never do that. No, everyone in my house thinks I'm going to fail, which makes me want to do really well.
I think you're going to flourish.
Thank you, Liz.
You're about to prove them all wrong.
Evie said you're only going to be able to do this if you sleep really late.
That's funny.
I was like,
that's awesome.
I don't think that's the purpose of this.
Oh, man. Well, I pray it's fruitful. Okay, there's one more thing that I want you to share about before we sign off with everybody, which is that I can't help but think of how to study the Bible with us going through the book of James. So many of my friends who have been going through the course have talked about how they've really had kind of gotten like the double whammy with our weekend teaching series and going through how to study the Bible. They've really fallen in love with the book of James.
I love that.
Yeah. So I would love for those of you that are listening, Kay wrote an incredible course and resource for our church that's called How to Study the Bible. And it's really practical, helpful tools for people to learn just how to get all that they can out of the scripture. And James is used quite a bit. So can you share a little bit why James, and tell everybody about the course. And
I am not a writer. I'm a math and science girl. This was really out of my comfort zone. To be honest, I just did it strictly out of obedience. Eric said last summer, you just get it on paper. Just get it on paper. Just get it on paper. And I kept saying, it's so simple. It's like so simple. And he was like, maybe that's how it's supposed to be. I mean, I've been an elementary school teacher, guys. It's simple. And so I just kind of got on paper skills that God's been, making real in my life for 20 plus years. I've learned from a lot of different people, a lot of different resources. This isn't like because I created anything great. And I used James as the jumping off point because that just so happens to be what I was studying at the time. And I was, we actually used James 3:1-5 quite a bit in the study. And I had, one of our girls that had something really hurtful said to her when I was studying that passage, and really hurtful. And I wanted to hurt the kid that said it. Like, I was so angry.
Naturally.
And I wanted to tell everybody else how awful that was, And I started reading that passage, and I was like, I can't. Like, it's not good for her. It's not good for me.
Yeah.
And so I was really convicted in the passage you're going to do next week, too, about being a two-timer with the world. But so there's just a lot of conviction happening in James. And so I thought, well, this is good. This is good stuff to use because the skills are showing me things I need to change.
Wow.
And so I just kind of chose to use James because that's what I was in at the time.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And you have one coming up pretty soon.
This is
with youth.
My favorite thing I do ever is teach it to high school students.
But it's like right now. So if someone wants to do this, they have to sign up right now.
Yeah, it's next weekend. Next weekend,
so like 6 days from when they're listening to this. Yeah.
15, 16, 17. You can still sign up. So our goal is for high school students to go through it each year of high school. So I rewrote it for them this time on Philippians. So we'll be going through the whole first chapter of Philippians, using these skills, but really digging deep into chapter 1 of Philippians. I love it.
Amazing.
So much.
Thank you so much for creating this resource for our church. I cannot imagine if I had that when I was in high school.
Same.
I would be.
They're the best. High school students are just the best.
Oh, it's amazing.
They're the best.
Thank you both for loving our students, loving our whole church. And Kay, thanks so much for joining us for this week.
It was fun. You're welcome.
Thank you guys for listening to the If I Had More Time podcast. Thanks for listening to the If I Had More Time podcast hosted by Mariners Church. We hope to see you next weekend at any of our congregations throughout Southern California or online. To view our locations and service times, be sure to check out our website at marinerschurch.org.